All right, welcome to part 3 of this series where we're going to be ranking fantasy running backs for Dynasty this year. Um, so we have our normal categories: keep at all costs, listening to offers, cash in on value immediately, good bench, handcuffs, and drops. So this is for Dynasty, and this one also includes college running backs. I'm not going to use them all. I'm not going to use any college running backs. I mean, they got was it Genty, Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Judkins, Scatabo. I'm not going to be using them because I think that they all can be in the. They could all be at least keep at all costs, or they could even be like good bench and handcuff guys. So, and we already got kind of a. We have a. In the first video that I did about drafting dynasty running backs and receivers, I guess just rookies. We already talked about it, so let's keep it going. All right. So keep at all costs. Let's start with Saquon Barkley. I mean, he just ran over the Rams again last week. You know, with that Eagles offensive line, he gets into open space so often, and that's where he does most of his damage. And so Saquon is a guy you're going to be keeping. Derrick Henry, he also once again ran all over the Bills even though they lost, but I'm also listening to offers for him because of his age. If I'm seeing a great offer for Derrick Henry, I'm trading him away just because like you don't know how much longer he's going to be that dominant of a running back for. Jahmyr Gibbs also in the keep it all cost tier. I mean, he had I think was it 2 touchdowns against the Commanders? I think he had 2 touchdowns against the Commanders. Even though they still lost, but in the last games of the season when David Montgomery was out, and even when he came back for the playoffs, Gibbs has just been absolutely dominant, and he's a guy you want on your fantasy team no matter what. Chase Brown, a lot of people will put him at keep at all costs just because he's young and he had a good year. I say I'm listening to offers because that Bengals passing offense really opens up the run game, and I don't think Chase Brown is necessarily like on the same level as guys such as like Bijan, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, Jonathan Taylor. Like if you put him on an average team, I see him putting more production, kind of like Aaron Jones or Brian Robinson. But since the passing attack was the best in the league, they opened up the run game a lot more. And Chase Brown, yes, is a good running back. I think you listen to offers for him, and especially because I think the Bengals can draft another running back. Bijan Robinson, keep at all costs. I mean, he had an incredible rookie, or he had a kind of mid rookie season, but he had an incredible second season, and he's just going to keep going up from here. And he's a great running back for the future. Josh Jacobs is getting older up in age, which is also why I'm listening to offers for him. He's going to be good for another 2 or 3 years, but especially if you're not contending, Josh Jacobs is not a guy you want to keep on your roster. If you're rebuilding, like I'd try to get rid of Josh Jacobs, trade him for a younger guy such as Kyron Williams or Bucky Irving. Like if you can get him for that. James Conner, cash in on value immediately. Trey Benson is the next guy up in Arizona. He had a great year this year, and despite being a backup, and James Conner does not have many years left. So I think that, especially because he had a really good end to the season apart from championship week, you're going to have to cash in on that value. Kyron Williams, bit inconsistent at times. That Rams offense is definitely just going to keep getting better. We don't know how long Stafford's going to play. I'm listening to offers for him. He is not amazing, but also not bad. HN, keep at all costs, even in an awful Miami Dolphins offense this year. He still was the focal point of that offense. He didn't really get hurt at all this year. He maybe missed, I think he missed maybe one game, if anything. But he played a great year, and I think that he is definitely keep at all costs running back. Rico Dowdle, even though he technically is still a starting running back in the league, I'm putting him as good bench depth / handcuff because whether it's Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, or even Ashton Genty, these guys are all going to start over Rico Dowdle, and it's not even going to be close. But Rico Dowdle still is a good running back, and on the days where the Cowboys play good offense and the running back's out, he could be a good stash. Jonathan Taylor, he's getting up in there in age as well for a running back. I'm listening to offers for him. He had a couple of big games, but he also had a couple of bad games. I think the Colts could be a great offense next year, but they could also be a really terrible offense. So, Chuba Hubbard, cash in on value immediately. That Panthers offense was uncharacteristically good this season, and I don't trust Bryce Young in the long haul to put up that kind of running back numbers again. The Panthers are just a poorly run organization, and I feel like even though they paid Chuba Hubbard, I always hate to see when people go crazy in a contract year for them, and only in a contract year, because that kind of proves that they're in it for mostly money, which kind of sucks, but we'll see what happens. Aaron Jones, depends on where he goes this season, but I'm also cashing on value immediately. He had a good year, but he's getting up there in age. He's not as good as he was prior, and yeah, you're going to cash in on that value. Same thing with Joe Mixon, cashing on the value immediately. He was averaging like 20 points a game as a running back, but this Texans offense really took a step back towards the end of the season, and Joe Mixon the most. He plummeted and really like cost people the fantasy championships, even though he had this one guy in my league. He had Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, and Justin Jefferson, as well as a decent core around him with George Kittle, and didn't even make the playoffs. Granted, he was averaging 150 points against, but still. He had the most points in the league, didn't make the playoffs, and probably would have missed out on the playoffs too, just because he went in like a 2-game losing streak at the end because of Joe Mixon and Saquon. Or was it not Saquon, Joe Mixon and Jefferson a little bit too. James Cook, listening to offers. With Josh Allen, he vultures a lot of rushing touchdowns, even though James Cook has a lot of touchdowns. And he's got good receiving upside, going to be in a great offense. And, if his brother Dalvin is any excuse to not take him, then I disagree. Bucky Irving, people will say this is too early. I'm putting him at keep at all costs. He had the best rookie running back season, and it wasn't even close. And he also, that was splitting the backfield with Rachaad White, who I'm putting a good bench depth / handcuff. Baker's going to keep this team at a very decent offense, and especially when Chris Godwin and Mike Evans come back at full strength, then I love what Bucky Irving can do in this offense. And then Rachaad White, he produces as a good handcuff, but sometimes can get you 0. Brian Robinson, I can really see the Commanders going and getting another running back this year, especially because he's been performing so poorly. I know that they're in the NFC Championship right now, but Brian Robinson doesn't really add anything to this Commanders team. Their rushing attack is a lot of Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels does a lot of passing work for this team as well, And Brian Robinson had a couple of really bad games towards the end of the year, and he was hurt a lot. I'm not surprised that the Commanders go out there and draft Amari and Hampton or Caleb or even Scatabo. Tony Pollard. With Tony Pollard, I'm also going to put him in cash in on value immediately because I don't think he's going to start for much longer. He had an okay year this year. If the Titans offense becomes really good again, I'd put him in listening to offers. But I think that with his age getting up there, cash in on value immediately is the right spot to put him. Same thing with Kenneth Walker. And I'm actually going to put Zach Charbonnet over him. With the Seahawks running backs, it's really weird. Kenneth Walker looked worse than Charbonnet in pretty much every category this season, and Walker's always hurt. I would not be surprised if Walker gets hurt again this year and next year and Charbonnet goes off. I'm not surprised if Charbonnet is the starting back in Seattle for next season if Walker gets hurt again. Breece Hall, I know he had a bad down year, but I'm still putting him at keep at all costs. He's a really good talent. There's a reason why people were drafting him in the first round of fantasy football this season. The Jets just had a terrible year, and you really can't really fault Breece Hall for that. That offensive line, especially the interior, is awful. Hopefully when they actually play Fashion New, they'll get a little bit better. CMC, I'm putting in listening to offers. Once again, he's getting up in there, the Achilles tendonitis, and But the issue is that it seems like whenever Christian McCaffrey is not the number one overall pick, he has a really good year, and he's not going to be the number one overall pick this year. So he definitely could have a good year, but I'm definitely listening to offers for him. Najee, Najee, and Jalen Warren. You're going to cash in on any value you have on these two guys. These guys are not the running backs for the Steelers' future. I can see Najee Harris getting traded or hitting free agency too. That's another thing. Nick Chubb, it's really sad to see. I do like Nick Chubb, but you're going to be in cash in on value. I mean, you're hurt again, and honestly, his career just may be over, which is sad to see because of all these injuries. And it's not even really his fault. He wasn't really too much of an injury-prone player before this. He had I think he had one season-ending injury a couple years ago, but that the injury of the Steelers was just so gruesome 2 years ago, and it just really put his career off track. Pacheco, listening to offers, he's a great running back and a great offense. Need I say any more? Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. I'm honestly going to throw them both in good bench and handcuffed. They'll be starting backs, but the Jags offense is kind of trash. And Etienne was kind of a touchdown monster last season. And now that he doesn't have the touchdowns, he has pretty much zero production. It was one of the biggest busts this year in fantasy football. DeAndre Swift, I'm cashing in on value. He had a great year for how bad this Bears offense was. And I think he averaged somewhat like 14, 15 points a game, which is what you want to see in a running back. However, I don't think he's that guy in Chicago. And I think that he could have 1 or 2 more years of good play, but I think you should probably cash in on and sell him. Tyrone Tracy, I'm putting him in listening to offers. Yes, he is already getting up there in age for a running back, but you also have to remember it's a second year only a second year playing running back. He doesn't have the wear that a lot of these other guys have. So I think he can still go for a while. Is he going to be the Giants running back for years to come? He could. He also could not. But right now, I'd rather have Tyrone Tracy for the future than most of these guys that I put in this tier, which is crazy to say, but obviously, right now, if you're going into the season and you have these guys on your team, they're going to start, I'd start Joe Mixon right now over Tracy, over Pacheco, over James Cook, probably even over Jonathan Taylor. I'd start Derrick Henry over some of these guys, but this is in the long-term Dynasty fantasy. If this was redrafted, it'd be a total different tier list. Now, the Raiders running backs, honestly, they're going to draft a running back, both of them. I think it's Sincere McCormack and Alexander Madison, is it? Nothing special about either of them. Raiders are drafting a running back that's going to be better than both of them easily. J.K. Dobbins, another injury to end the season, and it's not going to be a long-term injury, but he comes in and has a really good year, but I just am really concerned about his wear and tear, and I feel like now that he's finally had a really good year, now's the time to sell J.K. Dobbins before he gets another season-ending injury. Javonte Williams, I'm putting him in good bench, that's handcuff. Broncos are going to draft another running back, and if you have Javonte Williams, which I do in Dynasty, you're going to want to draft a Broncos running back. I'll quickly show you my Dynasty team at the end of this. Austin Eckler, once again, good bench dash handcuff. If you can put up receiver stat lines, 6 receptions for 80 yards at running back, you're at least a good bench option. If Brian Robinson ever goes down or whoever running back they have, Austin Eckler's going to plop in there and be really good. Ramondre Stevenson, I'm going to put in good bench. Once again, the Patriots offense wasn't great. Ramondre even got benched earlier this season. His job is not secure. And I don't trust him to start over any of these other guys mostly. Obviously, there's not really too many actual real drops in here. Honestly, I kind of forgot I had that tier. I'm going to throw in a 12-team dynasty league, you're not dropping any of these guys though, most likely, because they're all at least starting running backs or twos. Although I do see one that I think you're going to be dropping, and that is not Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Brooks, because he just had another really bad injury, if I do remember correctly, and Chuba Hubbard just got that big contract. I am not here trusting Jonathan Brooks in the future, either to stay healthy or to even like come back and take the job from Chuba Hubbard, because he didn't really look amazing when he came back. So he's my only really like drop. Alvin Kamara, listening to offers, he's probably at the top of probably closer to the top of listening to offers. Had a great year this year. His receiving upside makes him, even in a bad offense in PPR leagues, a good running back. And same with David Montgomery. Well, not same with David Montgomery, but he's also in the listening to offers tier. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is just going to take all of the load from him. And David Montgomery is going to kind of be that goal line back, but Jahmyr Gibbs had such a good end of the season that I don't see them. I see his role drastically increasing next season. And then I guess, you know what? Let's have some fun. We'll do it. Let's predict these guys. I'm putting Genty at keep at all costs. I'm also putting Caleb Johnson at keep at all costs, because I think that in where Caleb Johnson goes, he could get into a really good offense, such as like the Broncos or the Bengals offense. Some guys who like need a running back. Actually, I'll put him in listening to offers. I'll put him in there. I'll also put Amarian Hampton in there. I'll put Scatabo in here, and then the Ohio State running backs at bench handcuffs. And I guess I should say my national championship predictions. I'm gonna say, this is recorded on the day of the national championship. I'm gonna say Notre Dame beats Ohio State 27-20. And on the last drive of the game, Will Howard throws an interception to lose the game. All right, well, here's the Dynasty team. So I have the second overall pick this year. I started tanking, I definitely started tanking way too early into the season. I got rid of a lot of guys. My running backs, I had James Conner. I did really like him, but he was getting a bit older, so I traded him away. I got a good bit of value for him. I don't remember exactly what I got, but yeah. Rico Dowdle once again. These guys, they need to go. I'm planning on drafting a bunch of running backs, but the wide receiver core, honestly, like with Xavier Worthy, Khalil Shakir, and Juwan Jennings, and imagine Michael Pittman's not going to be in this lineup most likely next year. It's going to be Teteroy McMillan, who's most likely going to be my pick at number 2. Decent pick, he's going to be fine. Juwan Jennings, good player. I'm trying to get a younger receiver for him, but I don't know. No one really wants him, kind of. Going to the next page, this is the first half of my bench. Once again, I just traded away Tua, so I don't really have too much depth at the running back or at the quarterback position, as well as the running back position. I have a couple guys. Roschon could be a good running back if Swift ever goes down. Isaiah Davis, once again, had a great game when Breece Hall was out. Austin Eckler had the concussion at the end of the year, which sucks, but and then Javonte, going to be benched. Algier, if Bijan goes down, great handcuff to have. And then the receivers, probably dropping Brendan Rice. He kind of is not that guy in LA, and I need room for all these new guys I'm going to get. Xavier Gibson, he's probably being dropped too. He's not going to get too many reps on the Jets, I don't think. But then Troy Franklin, I do love having Troy Franklin on this roster, because when you have a guy who's played with Bo Nix in college, and they played really well in this first year, the Broncos, and I feel like, especially with a guy like Troy Franklin, who's only 21, they could definitely use him more into the future. And then Baker and Vele, just more kind of bench depth guys. Lastly, I have, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Lockett. They're okay, guys. It's not crazy. Same with Josh Palmer. Parker Washington had a couple of good games for Jacksonville, and he could definitely be a starter for Jacksonville soon enough. He's a good slot guy, and if he is a good slot guy, then he could definitely get reps on the team. Raheem Jarrett, probably dropping him too. McMillan looks like the better rookie receiver, and they have a lot more receivers on that team. And then Dalton Kincaid and Brenton Strange looking like two great tight ends. I mean, Brenton Strange did really well when Evan Ingram was out. So he's a good backup for that. And Dalton Kincaid, I'm trying to shop him around because I already have Sam Laporta, who I want to start for the foreseeable future, but not really many people are biting on Kincaid. But yeah, that's about it. That was the tier list, and subscribe.